Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to episode 5 of Properly Freelance. Today's episode doesn't follow the format of my other recordings. It's just a series of clips that I made during some of the more difficult freelancing days I've had recently. I decided to share them because I did promise that this podcast would be about the reality of self-employment, warts and all. These are definitely the warts. This episode should probably have some kind of profundity warning because I promised to keep it light and entertaining. But it's harder to laugh when you're on your own. Don't worry, in between making these clips, I watched many YouTube videos of the world's silliest kittens and had a good giggle. So you may hear me expressing some angst in what follows, but everything is fine again now. Hey freelancers, this is not an official episode. I don't have anyone here with me. I don't have my microphone set up, nothing like that. But I am having a bit of a wobble. Been feeling like, why do I do it? What am I doing? Where am I going? Why don't I just get a full-time job? All of those kind of thoughts going through my head today. I think it's partly been triggered by the fact that somebody I know and really respect, who I think is a fantastic freelancer, doing all the right things, and who I really kind of look up to and admire, has told me that they're getting a full-time job. And this has made me question whether the freelance lifestyle is sustainable, whether it's really the long-term thing that I want to be working towards, or whether I'm gonna change my mind in a few years' time. So I'm reflecting on that a lot, and I don't have the answers. I think some of them are probably there in the back of my mind. Some of them I might find by listening back through the podcast. But I'm having one of those days where all those things that I've reflected on in the podcast and over time, all those things that I've said are great about freelancing. Today I just feel like those are all just words, and that's me trying to convince myself of something that's not true, because it's not true every day. So I'm taking a deep breath. I'm sharing this because I'm pretty sure we do all have days like this, and I'm not sure what the answers are, but I hope it might be helpful to others to hear that I'm having one of these days. And yeah, I'm not off looking for a full-time job, because for me, I don't know if I could do it again, and I don't know what. Well, actually, I say again, I've never done it. I've never had a full-time job. I don't know if I can do it at all, and I don't know what that job is that I would want. So, in a way, I feel like that option is not open to me because there's nothing on the table. So maybe I'm feeling a bit jealous of this person who has told me that despite all their successes, they've got a better offer on the table. Maybe that's what it is. I think for me, I don't have that better offer. So I need to keep on focusing on all the stuff that's great about the life that I do have. But when something like this happens, you kind of think more about the downsides, the insecurity in particular, just how very little money I'm earning. It is there. It is in the back of my mind. I'm comfortable, but I don't know if I'm earning what I'm really worth. And there's a lack of value being placed on my skills the way that I currently work. So yeah, that's my wobble. Maybe I'll just feel completely better in another day or two. I'm not sure. Maybe I'll publish this, maybe I won't. I'm gonna sleep on it. Good night. Hi everyone, it's Jenny here. The last thing that I recorded for the podcast wasn't really a proper episode. It was more like a diary entry lamenting some difficult stuff that was going on. I'd had a kind of interesting, slightly difficult freelancing day. I've been having a few of those lately. This is something that happens when you're a freelancer. So I just thought I'd do another kind of diary entry to check in with where I'm at. What are the things that I've been finding difficult recently? Well, I'm kind of between projects at the moment. and there's a lot of legwork to do. So one of the projects, the main theatre project that I run, just finished a really great project, come down from quite a high, and we're just getting started with the next thing, and I am trying desperately to get some things off the ground, and it's really difficult, and I feel like I'm working on my own a lot. I feel like I'm having to make decisions, and in order to make those decisions I'm consulting with stakeholders as much as possible, but no matter how much I do that, I still can't really explain to everyone why I end up making the decisions that I make, because I feel like I'm a bit kind of defensive or it's too long-winded. So I've been feeling a bit stressed about that. I've also not been very well. I suffer with migraines. They're not chronic apparently, because you have to have 14 or 15 migraines a month for them to be chronic, and I'm only having like 6 or 8. Woohoo! But they do get me down. I'm actually going to be doing an episode on chronic illness. I think this is a really important thing, and for me it's very closely tied in with my working life and with the reasons why I've chosen to freelance, actually, because I feel like, I mean, it's kind of shit that the working world is not more accommodating of things like chronic illness. I mean, I work a lot in the field of disability, so I know all about reasonable adjustments and the law around that. And I also see firsthand way too often how difficult it can be to get heard. For me, that's not really a path that I've tried to go down, partly because I don't have a diagnosis of chronic illness, but I do feel that my migraines affect my life on a day-to-day level, to the point where I don't think I could lead a happy and healthy life where I felt good a lot of the time as a 9 to 5er, or as someone in a full-time payroll position. Certainly not unless I found something that was just extremely well tailored to my needs. So yeah, so that's something I do want to talk about on another episode, but it's still nice to just check in now and get off my chest the fact that that's been pretty tough lately. Today I was supposed to make a proper episode, and unfortunately the person who I was going to make that with ran into some work that she really needed to do at the last minute, so obviously that had to come first. And one of the things that I've said all along about making this podcast is, if you're talking to freelancers, especially if you're not paying them for their time and you're not getting paid for your time, it has to be something that's flexible, and it has to be something that you drop at a moment's notice if it's going to be stopping someone from earning money or stressing someone out, whatever. It has to be flexible. But that was a bit of a shame today that that didn't happen. I'd already woken up with a migraine, stayed in bed for a bit longer, dragged myself out of bed because I wasn't feeling good, looked out the window, seen the absolutely miserable weather today, and I think I get a bit of seasonal affective disorder, which can be something that makes it really, really hard to self-motivate, which you have to do as a self-employed person. So that was all kind of piling up today. I made it into the Impact Hub for a few hours, so that's good. And I did my classic, I'm going to move some of my things from today's to-do list onto another list, which I've confessed to in a previous episode. It's not the best way to be productive, but there are days when actually that's what you need to do. Makes you feel like you've achieved something. But I've come home early, stuffing my face with chocolate, and I've got the heating on, and I'm going to be, just looking after myself a bit today. So yeah, not the best today. So I'm not making a podcast today with a guest, which is a bit of a shame. And it's made me feel a bit like, oh, I haven't been productive. I've failed to do the thing that I planned to do. Maybe I'm going to fall behind with making these episodes. So in order to fill the gap and maybe make some material, I thought I would have a go at actually just sharing something which is my own as a kind of solo effort. This is a little speech that I wrote for something called Sunday Assembly. If you don't know about Sunday Assembly, it is a secular congregation that celebrates life, which meets a couple of times a month in London. They also meet all over the world. So if you fancy singing pop songs on a Sunday morning, like some of us do, then yeah, head on down to a Sunday assembly. It's really good fun. They have loads of really interesting speakers, and every time they meet, they have a slot at the London Assembly called Trying My Best, which is a chance for a member of the community to get up and speak about something that they've been kind of grappling with in their life and how they've been dealing with that. The Trying My Best slot that I did was really closely connected with my career. It's about portfolio working, I guess, so I thought it might be a nice thing to share in a slightly edited version on the podcast. I am trying my best to be happy in my career. After all, we spend so many of our waking hours working that it's important to find something you love. In searching for this over the last 10 years, I've fallen into a couple of traps. Firstly, I thought that if I could find something I was good at, I would enjoy it. Secondly, I thought that the best job would be one that was higher up with more responsibility and better pay. Both of these things are true to an extent. I found purpose in setting up my own charity and have gained much joy from its success. The topic for Sunday Assembly today is the sun, and I have found that taking on a professional leadership role is a bit like being a sun. I have to provide the gravity that holds all the planets in place and the energy that makes everything possible. Especially when you're the founder of something, you have to wear a lot of hats to keep it going. I don't just run inclusive workshops and put on theatre productions. I am an HR manager, an IT consultant, a fundraiser, a marketing executive, and an expert in many areas of company laws that I previously never knew existed. For a long time, I believed that my ultimate goal should be to fill my working life with similar work. My charity project only pays me a couple of days a week, maximum, so I spent time looking for other leadership roles to complete my weekly schedule. Before I knew it, I had even more planets in my gravitational field, and their orbits kept crashing. In case you're wondering, this is a metaphor for working multiple part-time jobs in leadership roles. I was stressed and constantly tired, and having suffered with migraines for many years, I was forced to acknowledge that there were actually limits to how much strain my body and my mind could take. By 2016, I was seemingly at the peak of my career to date, leading the work of 2 organisations and still managing to squeeze in other freelance work. I was earning enough to buy a house and to save up for my wedding the following year. When you work in the arts and live in London, this feels like a miracle. But in that same year, 2016, I had 95 migraine days in my diary. I've suffered with regular migraines for many years, although I don't officially qualify for the diagnosis of chronic migraine. That's when you have more than 14 migraines per month, or around 170 per year. I get around 6 to 8 per month, and my symptoms are usually mild enough that I can get through it and finish my working day. But on those days I struggle to enjoy anything, and it can be difficult to keep work stress in perspective. It turns out that trying to be the sun all the time is not a recipe for maximum happiness. I was keeping planets in orbit and trying to heat them, but I had barely any energy left. I was burning out. Luckily, to make ends meet between these supposedly ideal jobs, I'd been picking up other kinds of work, mostly lower paid but low pressure tasks where I took a supporting role in a project led by somebody else. For example, working with professional disabled actors, where my role might be to read their lines or describe what's going on in the rehearsal room if somebody can't see. I had always viewed this work as something temporary, a stepping stone and a way to pay the bills. But over the last 12 months, I've taken a step back and realised that I enjoy this work hugely. I like being a planet, or even a moon. These are roles I can cope with much better on days when I'm not feeling my best. Despite many, many different strategies, I have not yet found a way to overcome my migraines. But they're more manageable now that I allow myself to spend more of my days in these low-pressure roles that allow me to learn and grow and feel inspired by others. I don't want to be the sun every day. It's okay, healthy even, to take these different roles in life. And when I am leading something, I take comfort from the fact that even our sun is in fact in orbit around the Milky Way. Nothing and no one can function without the gravitational pull of others. Okay, if that was a little too profound, usual service will resume in episode 6, where I'll be interviewing one of the coolest men in Brixton. Before that, please could you do me a favour if you're listening to the podcast? I'll be getting some download statistics, but these don't actually tell me if you're listening. If you are, please could you give me a review on iTunes, email me on properlyfreelance@gmail.com, or tweet me to let me know. Just search for Properly Freelance or the handle Proper Freelance. Yes, I too was rather upset when I discovered that you can only have 15 characters in a Twitter handle. But I'd love to know what you're enjoying and if you have any questions or topics that you'd like me to cover in future episodes. So please do get in touch. Bye!